Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show where we talk about the big picture, the world stage, the geopolitics that makes this planet spin. The show is Globetrotting for Gossip, and I'm your host Atul Mishra, and we are here to take a deep dive into the issues that shape our world. We will be talking about power struggles, international alliances, and the forces that shape our global economy, like a real-life Game of Thrones, but with fewer dragons and more nuclear weapons. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn a thing or two about the world we live in. This is Geopolitics GFG style. Can we get a little music up in here? Yes, that's it. Let's get this show started. Let's talk about the US first, that melting pot of contradictions and absurdities. Republican president candidate Vivek Ramaswamy made news this week by saying, "I'm going to sue the World Economic Forum." Why, you ask? Apparently, they got it all wrong, listing him as one of their young global leaders. I mean, WEF thinks, who wouldn't want to be a part of that club? Trudeau, Jacinda, and so many more. But no, not our pal Vivek. He's plainly told Klaus Schwab, "Take my name off your website, you ogre." So picture this, Bud Light said, "Hey, let's celebrate Dylan Mulvaney's 1-year transversary." That is 1 year of her coming out as a trans with a super cool influencer package, a swag bag on steroids. They throw in these custom cans with Mulvaney's face on them, and she went bonkers saying, "Hey, check it out, Instagram." But then the internet does its thing, raining out criticism and online abuse like an ill-tempered hailstorm. Suddenly, Bud Light's stock rate is wobbling like a drunken frat boy. And you know what they say, everything woke turns to, well, not so great. But hey, it's Bud Light. We weren't exactly expecting craft beer level quality, were we? So it's an alien pajama party over at the Pentagon. They are like, "Oh hey, we saw more UFOs, this time in the Middle East, and would you look at that?" It's right when Biden's approval rating dips. I'm not saying there's a correlation, but if there were, I would call it the ET bump. Just imagine, every time those ratings take a hit, the universe sends us another mysterious visitor. It's like a celestial Uber for the White House, or maybe just a distraction for us Earthlings. Who knows, right? So Netflix is being sued, and it's all about Cleopatra. Apparently, they decided to give her a little makeover, and now she is of African American descent. Big LOL. Egyptian lawyer Mahmoud Al-Samari said, "Nope, not on my watch." He wants to kick Netflix out of Egypt faster than you can say walk like an Egyptian. I mean, it's one thing to give a historical figure a fresh wardrobe, but changing their race, that's pushing the envelope a little bit. Still, you've got to admit, it's got everybody talking about this show, and maybe that is exactly what Netflix wanted. So the Suez Canal blockade, right? It's like deja vu, but this time it's a bit more explosive. Enter the USS Florida, an American nuclear-guided missile submarine, casually cruising from the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. It's like a vacation, but with missiles. They even posted a pic with a fancy dry shelter for special underwater vehicles. But here's the real kicker. This little aquatic field trip could shake up global trade and maybe even spark a World War type crisis. So the UN decided to release this new publication, right? It's called Principles for a Human Rights Based Approach to Criminal Law, which sounds like a real page turner, doesn't it? But here is where things take a seriously wrong turn. It sort of hints that under certain circumstances, sexual conduct with persons below the age of consent might be consensual. Now, understandably, people are like, hold up, what, are you kidding me? Cause it seems like the UN's downplaying the whole protecting kids from abuse thingy, which is a huge deal and pretty disgusting if you ask me. Or maybe Biden wants to sniff more kids without arousing more questioning glances. So guess what? JFK's nephew decided to run for president, and he is challenging Biden by emphasizing how he messed up America big time. We don't disagree. But I suppose it's a family affair when it comes to politics. You know, the Kennedys are kind of like the royals of the US, always in the spotlight and passing the political baton from one generation to the next. It's almost as if they think a little autocracy wouldn't hurt the world's oldest democracy. Let us shift our attention to Europe now, the land of old world charm and modern day chaos. So it looks like the EU is having a bit of a tough time with this whole freezing Russian assets thing, right? They were all like, yeah, let us take their money and give it to Ukraine. But now they are realizing it might be more trouble than it's worth. It's like when you agree to help your friend move, and then you see how much stuff they actually have. Suddenly, returning the assets to Russia seems like the easier option. According to the German newspaper Die Welt, even top EU officials like European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are finding it difficult to implement the plan of giving the money to Ukraine. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It's not impossible, but it's definitely a challenge. I just hope they figure it out soon and do not end up with a diplomatic disaster on their hands. So Macron made a casual announcement in Beijing about the French world order last week. This caused some concern in the EU, and they decided to send German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock to do some damage control. However, instead of smoothing things over, Baerbock went in guns blazing and lambasted China with pretty harsh language. It's like inviting someone over to fix a problem, but they end up making things worse. The whole situation is a bit of a diplomatic nightmare, and I can't imagine how Macron is feeling right now. Maybe he's wishing he had stuck to talking about things like dating older women instead. It seems like Zelensky has gotten on the bad side of Ukrainians now, and now they're taking to the streets again with a new Euromaidan protest. The situation is getting tense, and there's even talk that Zelensky could be ousted from power if the protests continue. Looks like the joke's up for the president, who took clowning around a little too far. Let us talk about Canada, United States' polite neighbor to the north. It looks like Twitter's new boss, Elon Musk, has ruffled some feathers with his recent comments about the CBC. He referred to it as 69% government-funded media, and the CBC seems to have taken offense. In fact, they have gone so far as to quit Twitter altogether. It's like playground squabble, but instead of kids arguing over toys, it's big shot media outlets and tech billionaires throwing shade at each other. But the CBC is walking down the aisle of shame on the way out. It seems like the oil war has taken a toll on Alberta, and they are now considering a big decision. Premier Smith and her officials have announced that they are not ruling out the possibility of leaving Canada altogether if Trudeau decides to abandon the country. Their message is clear: reject, rebel, separate if necessary. We are looking at a dramatic breakup where you storm out of the room, slam the door, and never look back. Except in this case, it's an entire province doing the storming. Let us now talk about Africa, the continent with both incredible beauty and insane political instability. When your team starts to fight and bicker, it's like watching toddlers squabble over a sticker. The same thing is going on in Sudan, which is in a state of internal conflict with the military factions against each other and the future of democracy uncertain. It's like a house divided against itself with no clear solution in sight. The situation is causing chaos and instability, and it's unclear how long the conflict will last or what the eventual outcome will be. The people of Sudan are caught in the middle of this struggle, and the future remains uncertain. Despite years of pressure and protests for a civilian government in Sudan, the situation has taken a turn for the worse. Military tensions have escalated into open warfare, with the army and paramilitary forces engaged in fighting. The country is in a state of chaos, and there are concerns that the conflict could disrupt Sudan's democratic transition and lead to a wider conflict. It's like a powder keg waiting to explode, with the potential to cause widespread damage and destruction. The people of Sudan have been fighting for change and democracy for years, and it's a shame to see their efforts potentially derailed by military conflicts. It remains to be seen how the situation will be resolved. But one thing's for sure: the road to peace and stability in Sudan is long and difficult. A guy named Mark knew some secrets about his friend John that could potentially ruin his reputation. So when John was up for a big promotion at work, Mark saw an opportunity to use those secrets as leverage. He approached John and said, "Hey buddy, you know those secrets I have about you. Well, let's just say they could be very damaging if they were to get out. But don't worry, I'm willing to keep quiet for a price." John was taken aback. "What kind of price?" he asked. Mark replied, "How about a lifetime supply of pizza?" This may sound like an unfunny joke, but replace Mark with Emmanuel Macron, John with the president of Algeria, replace secrets with an ethnic group, and pizza with constant hold. Suddenly, this doesn't sound like a joke, and it isn't. Macron is sponsoring the Kabylie group in an attempt to apply pressure on its ally Algeria. If Algeria stops listening to Macron's commands, he can unleash the group onto the African nation. The situation is tense, and it remains to be seen how Gabon will respond to these actions. One thing's for sure, this move by Macron could have far-reaching consequences for the relationship between France and Algeria, and it's a delicate balance that must be handled with care. Let us talk about Latin America now, where the salsa is hotter than the weather and the politics are spicier than the food. But it looks like Brazilian President Lula da Silva is playing hardball with the big dogs, positioning Brazil as an independent player in global politics. It's like that kid on the playground who suddenly decides to ditch their friends and join the cool clique, leaving everyone else scratching their heads. BRICS is stronger than ever, and it seems like the allies are all about ending the war with a peace plan. Meanwhile, NATO is probably wondering what just hit them, a political curveball from Brazil. It's like when you're playing a game of soccer and someone unexpectedly kicks the ball out of bounds. The other team is left scrambling to figure out what just happened. One thing's for sure, the global power dynamics are in a state of flux, and it's anyone's guess how this will play out, but it's sure to be an interesting ride. Let's talk about the paper dragon itself. Of course, I'm talking about China. It looks like the CCP's surveillance is going next level with a new plan to track delivery bikes using chips. The goal is to crack down on dangerous driving behavior and ensure that deadlines are met. But what exactly counts as dangerous behavior? Is it shouting "down with Xi Jinping" while biking? Or maybe it's just biking too fast and furiously, like something out of a Hollywood action movie. It's like the CCP is taking a page out of George Orwell's book and implementing their own version of 1984. The idea of being tracked everywhere you go, even on your trusty delivery bike, is a bit unsettling. Who knows where this all will lead? Perhaps we'll all be living in a world where every move is monitored and scrutinized, where even the most mundane actions are subject to scrutiny. It seems that China has gone back on its promise to restructure debt for Gambia, leaving the nation's renowned maritime industry in tatters. It's like a bad breakup, with Gambia left feeling betrayed and hurt by China's actions. They thought they had a strong and reliable partner, but instead China has left them high and dry. It's a tough blow for the Gambia, and the future of their maritime industry is uncertain. And finally, let us talk about my country, India, where spirituality, technology, and traffic jams coexist. It seems that India is a master at the art of balancing. We have just emerged from a successful trade deal with the US, making them India's biggest trading partner. Meanwhile, India and Russia have just signed a new trade deal, showing India's ability to play both sides of the fence. It's like a game of political juggling, with India skillfully maneuvering to keep both the US and Russia happy. India is big and influential, and that is why they are being wooed by the biggest players in the game, rather than being bullied into taking sides. India's ability to balance competing interests is a testament to its diplomatic skills and strategic thinking, a valuable lesson for all of us, to be so big and influential that nobody can dictate their terms, and you are not beholden to anyone. Power. India is poised to overtake China as the most populous nation in the world. Well, that's not really a surprise from the land of the Kama Sutra, is it? While the challenges of population growth have been discussed ad nauseum, it's important to consider the advantages as well. India is one of the youngest nations in the world, with a huge pool of talent and potential waiting to be unleashed. It's like a giant sleeping giant, just waiting to be awakened. With the right investments and opportunities, India has the potential to become a major player on the world stage. It's the only country at this time that has the potential to unseat China and take its place as a global superpower. Well, that's geopolitics for you. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, except instead of cars, it's countries, and instead of rubbernecking, we're just trying to keep up. And that's a wrap for today's show, folks. Remember, in geopolitics, things should be like my beard, calm and constant, but they are like the ever-changing beard styles of Jake Gyllenhaal. Find me next time when we will explore more of the strange and fascinating world of international relations. Until then, keep your wits sharp and your passports handy.